This morning, our Lord makes a kind of a curious reference about salt and how salt losing its flavor. And reminded me back of my days in my pre-med studies with chemistry, which I loved chemistry. And salt, sodium chloride, is a compound from sodium and chloride. And salt is like one of the most stable compounds that we have. Like sodium and chloride in that arrangement, they want to be together. And it's actually, they will stay together unless you do something kind of extraordinary to get them to break apart. And if sodium and chloride are together, it's going to be salt. It's going to taste like salt. So how is it that salt can lose its flavor? Well, if you're just going with chemistry, salt's going to be salt. Now, our Lord Jesus, who is God and who created the elements out of nothing, obviously had something in mind when he's telling us this. Well, in the ancient world, when you had salt, so often salt was mixed with something else to kind of extend it, to kind of cut it, if you will. And what can happen is that if that they call salt, which had other things that weren't sodium chloride in it, if it got wet and leached out the salt, then it would definitely lose its saltiness and flavor, and then it wouldn't be good for anything except being thrown out and being trampled upon. So the Lord made us his salt and light. He did this, as St. Paul just told us, through his cross. We know Jesus Christ and him crucified. And his cross, which brought into this world his life of abundance, his divine life, that he extends that to us. He wants us to share in that abundant life. And he wants us to be salt and light to the world. Salt that gives its flavor and its preservative powers. And the other image that our Lord uses is covering up a light with a bushel basket. Like, that's crazy. The whole reason that you have something lit is that it shines. And so the question can be then, if salt's getting diluted, or if the candle is getting covered up in darkness, the question the Lord wants to ask ourselves is, what is it in life that is diluting the saltiness, that is covering up the light? What is it? What is it that keeps our light from shining? Is it, for some people, it could be alcohol. It could be lying. It could be gossiping and complaining. It could be impure images. It could be insensitivity to the needs of those around us. It could be just a lack of desire for a spiritual life. Whatever that might be, the Lord wants us to identify it so that he can go to work on it and get it so that our saltiness is really salty and that our light shines. Right? That's what he made us for. And if we think about what he gave us in the life of the church to do that, how do we preserve the salt and the light, is we think of the sacraments, we think of prayer, right? Obviously good things. But there's also a third element to that, and that is good works. That's what we hear from Isaiah, right? Isaiah lays out for us that we are to, do good to others, to shelter the homeless, to give food to the hungry, to clothe the naked. All of those things, those good works, which is what would help us to express that we are light and salt in the world, are of immense value. In fact, that's often a way to expiate our venial sin is through good works. And whether that is actual giving of our time and help to others, but also our financial resources. And so this weekend, as you may know, the Archbishop is having the Archbishop's Catholic Appeal. And that's that annual appeal whereby a lot of good works get done in our archdiocese. Right? That Catholic appeal reminds us that we're not some sort of siloed community church isolated all by ourselves. We are actually members of the universal church that is at the diocesan level and at the universal level. And so there's lots of things at the diocesan level that need to be taken care of, the good works that extend that. And the Archbishop sent out a video that we'll watch here. I'll have Jerry get that all queued up for us, if you could go ahead with that. to hear this message about how this great opportunity of accomplishing good works can happen in our archdiocese.